Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chairs and committee members. I'm Bill Zinni from the town of Hardwick, which borders the east side of the Quabbin Reservoir. I'm the chair of the Hardwick Conservation Commission. I'm a retired U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wetland biologist of 35 years, and I sit on the Lands Committee for the East Quabbin Land Trust. Thanks for the opportunity to make a statement in support of S-546. The town of Hardwick stands with our neighboring Quabbin Reservoir border towns in expressing continuing concern for fair compensation for the custodial responsibility of helping to ensure the future water quality of this critical water supply for Eastern Mass. The water that fills the Quabbin runs off adjacent town land, and its quality depends on land use activities that are reviewed and permitted within the towns. Hardwick hosts over 5,900 acres of Quabbin watershed lands, including lands in state ownership, lands in private ownership within the watershed boundary, and over 1,200 acres of submerged Quabbin bottom, for which minimal compensation is received. Our town's pilot payment through the Division of Water Supply Protection for slightly over 4,700 acres averages only $24 an acre, and the town continues to forego property tax it would collect if the division land were in private ownership. The Watershed Protection Act also rightly places additional regulations on use of private lands in proximity to tributaries that flow into the reservoir, also limiting land uses and local tax revenues. Our towns are subjected to opportunity costs not experienced elsewhere in the Commonwealth. Please consider this point as you deliberate. Undeveloped farm and forest land in the border towns is currently experiencing increasing pressure for subdivision and unplanned development, which will likely put Quabbin water quality at increasingly greater risk over time. The current purity of the water requires little treatment and related expense, but increasing human activities and contaminants could make future treatment more necessary. Hardwick's Select Board, Planning Board, Board of Health, Conservation Commission, and Building Inspector are mainly volunteer or limited time positions. As such, we have an increasingly harder time keeping up with project review to administer zoning and Wetland Protection Act regulations and building codes. Hardwick residents and officials hope to continue this important stewardship and custodial role as with the other border towns, but we ask that consideration be given to providing additional financial support to make it possible. Happy to answer questions, and I did bring some watershed maps if the committee is interested.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Chairs and members of the Joint Committee, for this opportunity to speak in favor of Senate Bill 546, House Bill 1042. My name is William Tinker, Vice Chair of the Hardwick Select Board. For nearly a century, the towns surrounding the Quabbin Reservoir, including Hardwick, have sacrificed land, economic opportunity, and essential services to safeguard this vital resource. Yet, despite our stewardship, we communities receive little support from the Commonwealth. This legislation, if passed, will ensure they have the means to continue protecting the Quabbin without being forced to accept dangerous proposals out of desperation. For 84 years, without recognition, fair compensation, or relief, the Commonwealth has drawn billions of gallons from our land, while the communities that protect the Quabbin are left struggling. Thousands of acres were removed from the rolls with minimum payment in lieu of taxes compensation. Strict regulations block residential, commercial, and industrial and agricultural development near the reservoir. Towns still must maintain roads, provide public safety, and respond to emergencies. Our residents act as unpaid guardians of the Quabbin, preserving its purity for millions of others. This has long been a one-sided relationship. Rural towns sacrifice, Boston and surrounding communities benefit. Hardwick is a working community with revolutionary roots, generations of farmers and families who've honored our duty to the Quabbin. But the Commonwealth has forgotten us. Our community has been hollowed out. Our ambulance service and hospital are gone. Our police station is in another town. We are in a healthcare desert. Our roads crumble, our infrastructure fails. We are not developers, financiers, or profiteers. We are citizens who have kept our promise. Recently, the town of Hardwick was offered $2 million annually to host a 140-acre regional landfill expansion just a mile from the Quabbin waterfront, a clear threat to the reservoir. We stood up, we said no. Boston had no idea we were being asked to make that choice. Landfill liners leak. It's not if, it's when. We're broke. The state gives us just $125,000 a year in pilot funds for our stewardship. What happens when the next offer is $5 million or $10 million? What happens when the weight of generational neglect outweighs principle? So we ask, what is securing the purity of the Quabbin Reservoir water worth to Boston, the surrounding communities, and millions of its residents? To us, it's been everything, and we've been left with nothing. At just 5 cents, half a cent per gallon, the Quabbin daily output exceeds 1 million, over 365 million annually. Yet towns protecting that right, may I finish?
You can finish the sentence.
All right. Go without basic services. We are requesting long overdue justice for a century of structural neglect. If not for Hardwick and other watershed towns that provide this precious water, Boston, in all its greatness, would not be able to exist as it does today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions?
Good afternoon, Chair
Go ahead.
Chair Barber and Chair Roush. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of House Bill 1042 and Senate Bill 546, an act relative to the Quabbin watershed and regional equity, filed by Representative Saunders and Senator Comerford. I'm Kim Robinson. I'm the Executive Director of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission serves as the regional planning agency for the 43 cities and towns of the Commonwealth's Hampden and Hampshire counties. We seek to preserve and enhance the quality of life for our member communities and the Pioneer Valley as a whole by bringing a regional and interregional perspective to planning efforts related to transportation, housing, economic development, historic preservation, pollution control, and resource management and protection. Over the past several years, there has been a growing conversation in the region pertaining to drinking water and equity. As you may know, the creation of the Quabbin Reservoir had a drastic impact on the Pioneer Valley. To this day, several of our communities still rely on wells and septic systems. Additionally, there are significant economic impacts that burden the communities surrounding the Quabbin and have for some time. In order to help these communities build strong and thriving futures, which is something that we want for all residents of the Commonwealth, it is vital that these issues be addressed. This legislation, particularly through the creation of the Quabbin Host Community Development Trust Fund and the study on providing Quabbin water to the surrounding communities in the region, will go a long way to benefit not only the communities in the Pioneer Valley, but the region as a whole. I'm grateful for your consideration of House Bill 1042 and Senate Bill 546, and hope that it is recorded favorably by this committee. Thank you for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of S546 and H1042. My family and I live in Shutesbury on the west shore of the Quabbin. This Saturday at our 290th annual town meeting, Shutesbury approved a $7.7 million budget for FY26. Payments in lieu of taxes from the state, including those for the 1/3 of our town taken for the Quabbin area, cover less than 5% of that. Residential property taxes pay for 73% of our town budget, which is 13% higher than the typical Massachusetts town. In most towns, the solution would be to spread out that burden by stimulating new taxable growth, but our ability to do that is constrained. Because of Quabbin, more than 1/3 of our town can't be developed, and rightly so. But this means the people of Shutesbury pay an additional $2.8 million in property taxes to make up for the tax revenue lost so that Greater Boston can drink our water. We need a solution for this that is fair to us and financially feasible for the people of Greater Boston, and this legislation is that solution. For mere pennies per gallon on a water bill in Boston, Shutesbury would be recompensed for much of the new development taxes we forego by being stewards of Greater Boston's water supply. We call ourselves a Commonwealth, a place defined by the understanding that we have an obligation to one another in the common good. The people of Enfield, Greenwich, Prescott, and Dana lived up to that ideal, giving up farms, businesses, and homes of generations for the benefit of the people of eastern Massachusetts. Those towns are gone, but the 8 surrounding the reservoir still pay an ongoing price so the people it serves can have reliable, clean, safe water. For 80 years, we've subsidized the cost of that water with our higher taxes, but we can no longer afford to do so. While Boston drinks our water, we drown. Recently, this proposal was dismissed as merely insatiable demand for revenue. But our need to afford our homes, have schools, safe roads, emergency services, and yes, water we too can drink are not insatiable demands. It's been asserted that Greater Boston, quote, always pays while the Quabbin towns continue to receive. But Shutesbury does pay. We pay $2.8 million in denied tax revenues every year. And Greater Boston does receive 73 billion gallons of our water per year, a fraction of its true cost. It's been said that we are sufficiently compensated already, but sufficient compensation would be $2.8 million. This year, the state will pay Shutesbury $31,206 for its land in town. That's 1.1% of what the land would provide if it were developed and taxed. Is 1.1% truly sufficient compensation? In 1927, the New York Times reported on Quabbin, concluding, Greater Boston by no means is indifferent to the tragedy which the need of the city inflicts upon the people of the Swift River Valley. I hope and trust that the people of Greater Boston remain today by no means indifferent to the plight still endured on their behalf by their fellow Commonwealth residents. Please report these essential bills favorably. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Roach, Chair Barber, and committee members. I am testifying in support of Senate Bill 546 and House Bill 1042, an act relative to the Quabbin watershed and regional equity filed by Senator Comerford and Representative Saunders. My name is Lexi Dewey. I live in the Quabbin watershed community of Pelham, and I've been a resident there for 35 years. I support the creation of a Quabbin Host Community Development Trust funded annually by the MWRA and equitable representation to Quabbin communities, to the MWRA Board of Directors and the Water Resources Commission. Quabbin water is sold every day to cities and towns east of 495. The MWRA is actively looking to sell an additional 80 million gallons of water a day to new customers, potentially in the North and South Shores and towns in the growing Metro West region. Their Metro Tunnel program, when complete, will make the transfer of water easier and faster. MWRA is an efficient and resourceful company. Every year there is a financial surplus that is used in part to defease future rates for MWRA water and sewer communities. In drought years, the surplus is even higher, as the MWRA sells more water than average and charges higher rates to communities who need emergency water. The MWRA is not bound to the state's water use restrictions during a drought. Their full users, communities, can water outdoors as they please. A town wanting to increase residential and commercial growth or with PFAS contamination in their public water supply can apply to become an MWRA customer by going through the Interbasin Transfer Act process. Existing MWRA infrastructure throughout the Metro Boston region and current policy to bypass admission fees helps to offset some of the cost of hooking up to the MWRA water system. A watershed town such as Pelham does not have this opportunity. The MWRA does not want to increase the water treatment infrastructure by the Quabbin to assist towns with contamination or growth surrounding the Quabbin. Negotiating an equitable amount of money to go into a Quabbin Host Community Trust Fund to assist the communities that help steward the public water that MWRA is allowed to sell is a valid request and is one the MWRA is financially able to accomplish. The lack of interest in inviting our legislators and town representatives to the MWRA Board of Directors table is most concerning. The water and the land that provides the MWRA with the water quality and quantity that enables them to sell water every day comes from our region. Yet there is no acknowledgement, no interest, nor understanding of what this actually means. The decisions made at the MWRA board table and at the table of the State Water Resources Commission are closed to us. This ensures that our voices are not heard. Equitable representation at the table of decision-making should not be a privilege given only to those who buy the most water. Why should we be notified by email or not at all about water policy decisions that affect our region? By adding a seat to represent watershed communities, both the MWA and the Water Resources Commission acknowledge the existence and validity of our region's concerns and what our views can be for the future. An invitation to take an active role in state water policy and in the sale of MWA water that we steward is an important part of what this bill is asking for.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you.